I'm just going to apologize in advance because it's about an 11-minute video, but if you really want to keep your Toyota Alphard alive, or if you've got one imported and you just want to get maximum life out of it, then this video is really the one to watch. And it's really one to watch right to the end, because coolant problems can cause a world of problems that you do not want to be encountering, and coolant leaks as well. Hi there, welcome to my channel. Today I'm sitting behind the Toyota Alphard 3-litre MZ, and I'm going to be talking about coolant. So many of these cars come from Japan, and we're not sure whether all the liquids have been changed. So it's not a bad idea just to keep an eye on coolant and just monitor it when you get your car, and also just to monitor it on every time you change your fuel. You really should be doing it on a weekly basis, but most people don't. So anyway, here we go. We're going to look at the best indication of coolant temperature on the car, which is this one here. So we don't want that to ever go too high, but if you've got a JOBD code reader fitted to your car, which can be either the ELM327 or just one that you plug in, then you can get information similar to this, which tells you about the coolant temperature there. Okay, so this is sorry, my apologies, I've touched that, 82 degrees Celsius, which is during the car's stationary period. Now this coolant hasn't been changed as far as I realise, although I did lose quite a lot of coolant and had to top it up, so it's probably as good a time as any to think about replacing it. So let's look at what the coolant does. The coolant is there to keep the engine block nice and cool. So the engine block is where all the heat is transferred through from the little micro explosions, so with the petrol and air mixture. So that can get very, very hot. So what happens, you've got a coolant which is able to take away the heat away from the engine block, and it will transfer it to places where heat is required, such as in the heater matrix, which supplies your car internal heating. If you ever find that's not working properly, even though the engine's hot, then it may indicate a problem, either blocked heater matrix, where then the coolant is not flowing through there, so therefore it can't release the heat, or it could mean that you've actually got no coolant, or the pump is gone. Now, once all that hot liquid is in the engine and is coming out, it needs to cool down. So that will go to the radiator, and the radiator, when the car is moving, it's got these little radiator fins, and they basically transmit the heat from the aluminium or metal, whatever's in there, away into the air, and that cools down the metal of the radiator. And of course, as it cools down, it takes the heat away from the coolant. So the coolant returns back, is pumped back to the engine, where it heats up, and again back all the way around to your heater matrix is over here. The heater matrix is in this particular car at the back as well, and then back to the radiator where it gets cooled down. So when the car is stationary like this, you can see that the coolant temperature is increasing much more, and it would overheat if it wasn't for the fans, which it has in this particular car. I think it's got one big fan at the front. Some cars have two, but I'm pretty sure this one's got one, although we'll check later on, we'll be able to see it. And that will start to engage. So when the coolant gets to a certain temperature, it will start to engage the fans. Electrical fans will keep it cool even though the car is stationary. So why do we have to have the engine at a certain temperature? The engine is built to operate at a certain temperature efficiently. So when you start the car, initially it will need all the energy to stay within the engine block. It needs to keep nice and warm, so the car will not take away the fluid to the radiator, so it will basically cut it off. And it does that by having a little valve which will close to stop any water going to the radiator. And when it hits a certain temperature, that thermostat valve will just expand and open up, and that again will cause the coolant to flow to the radiator to cool down there. So when your car starts, the radiator is closed off, and when the car gets to a certain temperature, the radiator opens, and it allows the engine to cool down. again. So this is the things that we look for. So where do things go wrong? Well, things can go wrong. Well, let's just open up the bonnet of the car. Now, to open up the bonnet of the car, we're going to have to go underneath. We're going to turn the engine off now. You see it's at 90 degrees there, which is getting quite high, but as you can see, it's nothing to be scared of. Okay, but we want to try and keep that low, or within the ambient range, which, to be honest, I don't actually know. So we're going to go down here and we're going to open up the bonnet by pulling the lever on the left hand side. So I'll do that and I'll join you again at the front. Well, there we go. And actually this car has got two fans, and I'm just going to show you where they are. And see if there's one there, and there's another one down there. Okay, and over here, this thing here is your little reservoir which holds any excess coolant. So we're going to look at that as well. And over here you've got the radiator cap. Over, let me get this on. There we go, radiator cap over here. And it's actually marked radiator cap. So this thing needs to be nice and secure. This thing needs to be secure. This thing needs to be secure. And we don't want to open them when there's actually a hot car. So I'm not going to open them just now. We'd let the engine cool down. But the other thing you want to watch out for is that these fans can even kick off when the engine's off. So you don't want to get any long hoodie laces trapped in there, because it will just pull you in. That's a very dangerous thing to do. So tuck all soft bits out. So we're going to look at this now. As you can see, you can't really see much on there, but you've got a maximum line here and you've got a minimum line there. That's where you want to keep your fluid. Okay, so I'm going to look at this. Okay, so just excuse me again while I get a torch. So what we're going to do is going to use a torch, which you can see here. Now, where is it? There we go. I'm going to put it at the side. Now you can see that the actual liquid is now illuminated. You can see the pink is going right to the top, which is not a surprise, because remember, this liquid is now hot. So when it cools down, I think we'll find that it's actually going to drop down to liquid. Now I'll come back to that. We'll drop down to the level which I'm expecting. The other thing to note while we're here is the position of the bleed nipple, which is on the radiator. And there you can just see it, the little black disc with an Allen key kind of fitment. That's for bleeding the oxygen out of the radiator. So if you find that you've got this car which is coming from Japan, and it's you're wondering what type of fluid is in there, the real answer is you can't really tell, but you'll be assuming it's going to be the Toyota Red, which is the one that Toyota would recommend for this vehicle. So you've got a couple of choices. One is you're going to drain the vehicle completely out of the coolant and wash it out with distilled water, and then refill with Toyota coolant, or alternatively you just take a risk, which I just don't think is worth it, because you know, if you do get if it is a different coolant in there, if it does react with other coolant, then those fine channels in the engine block which it keeps cool can potentially block up, leading to problems with a decrease in efficiency of the cooling, and at worst case overheating of the engine block. Other things which we want to avoid is sludge building up from old radiator fluid, because just like everything, radiator fluid can break down and will break down, and we'll get will become an accumulation of corrosion products as well. And that's what we're using radiator fluid, not only to take away the heat and transfer the heat, but also to stop corrosion in the radiator being the component here underneath the grille, the long rectangular box which takes away the heat. And again, I think you might be able to just see it. It'll be tucked away behind these fins, which, as I said, these fans which will keep everything cool. So there you can go, you can possibly see the radiator through that. And as I said, I don't want to go too close to it, because I don't want these things switching on and just giving my fingers a haircut. So if this liquid starts to corrode with corrosion products from the radiator, and which it will pick up as it transfers through, and with age, then it can potentially jam up the engine block. So essentially that would decrease the efficiency of the engine and just push it, reduce the life of the vehicle, in the worst case damage the vehicle irreparably. So my objective here is to decide what I want to do. Well, I will probably end up replacing this liquid with the new Toyota Red. As I said, there's other brands available, but Toyota recommends the Toyota Red for this particular vehicle. It's about £20 for 5 litres. And I think that's going to be my next project. But as I said, I want you to wait until this engine cools down so you can actually see where that fluid settles to. Okay, and I'll come back and that's when I'll finish the video. And so this is now cooled down a little bit more, and now you can see that the coolant is sitting close to the top line. It's actually not 100% cool yet, but I can assure you that that is pretty close to the top line when it's cold. So hopefully that was of use to you. Later on I'll be taking this coolant and replacing it with the Toyota Red coolant, some new Toyota Red coolant, and I'll post that up in a video as well. Thank you, take care.